My name is Tom Hunsdorfer. I'm the current board chair of Jackson Interfaith Shelter, actually finishing up my third term on the board, so I'll look forward to staying with the board, but being in a different role after the first of the year. As for my professional background, I've mostly worked in nonprofit organizations throughout my career, many faith-based anti-hunger programs, soup kitchens, things like that. I worked at a place called St. Francis House in Boston for 10 years, a large multi-service center for people experiencing homelessness, but also about 10 years in higher education, some teaching and administration. I am mostly retired, and I got engaged with Jackson Interfaith Shelter probably about 4 years ago when I saw a press release that said a new director had been hired, someone named Steve Castle. And I thought, with my background in working in shelters and soup kitchens, I thought I'd just drop off a resume and say hello and see if there was some way I could be useful. And so it went from there. It's really been special to see the transformation of Jackson Interfaith Shelter. When I first arrived here, and this would have been several years ago, I did a little tutoring with a client who was working on her GED. But my first impression was arriving at a solid metal door, and there was no way to see in, there was no way to see out. It took a while to figure out how to get in, and inside it seemed a bit dark, it seemed isolated, it was not necessarily warm and welcoming, but there were a lot of people coming and going. Part of the transformation for me has just been to see that visual change. We now have a beautiful glass entry door. There's a side window that also lets in the morning sunlight. There are lights on. It is welcoming. It's clean. So that instead of a reaction of, boy, I'm kind of nervous about where I am here, and I imagine if I was homeless and approached this closed metal door, it seemed rather institutional, whereas now it's a lovely place to walk up to, and there's someone inside who can let you in, and the dining room area that you first see is well lit. The word hope is up on the wall. So there's been that kind of transformation of the physical plant. We have a really nice children's playground. We have an outdoor kind of resting area where people can go out and sit at a picnic table and just get out of the shelter building if they choose to. Our main resource room has been renovated. Part of the rest of the transformation that I see has to do with the approach to the clients, and that our focus is on welcoming people when they're in the midst of a storm in their lives. And I can imagine that for anybody, having to go to a shelter is a daunting proposition. You've already got problems in your life, and now I have to go to this place where I have no idea what it's going to be like, particularly if I have two little children in tow with me, which is often the case here. Some of our supporters certainly know that this place began as a shelter for, for alcoholic men. But over the years, we broadened our services to include families, and now we have lots of young moms and dads with small children here and some older children. So another part of the transformation is that we are serving people from all walks of life in the community, and we are focused on not only the services we offer today to someone who is homeless, but to help them get their life together, maybe put together a plan with some goals. We actually have personal plans for our clients, and it's forward-looking. Like, we want to walk with you during this tough time in your life, but what do you want to do after this? Where do you want to go, whether it's a type of housing or mental health treatment, substance abuse issues. So it's both a transformation in the concrete facility, in the focus of the work we do, but I think ultimately in the tone of the place, the spirit of the place. We have intentionally, as part of the transformation of the shelter, worked on creating a more diverse, engaged board of directors. Some of the former board members had been on the board many years, but maybe hadn't been in the shelter building for quite a while. We now hold all of our board meetings here, And we are intentional about having a board with a broad array of skill sets. So we have a contractor on the board, we have a mental health supervisor from Lifeways, we have a police officer, we have the head of the Jackson School of the Arts, we have someone with a long history of Habitat for Humanity, another person who's a counselor at Jackson High School, a real mix of people. I think one of our others is a retiree from Consumers Energy, somebody else with a finance background. So our hope in building this fairly new board is people who have a real heart for the mission of our place, but who also can help us with a finance issue or with a strategic plan or thinking about how do we better serve young families. Looking ahead for the shelter, we are really fortunate in that not only do we have a strong board and staff and volunteer team, the volunteers especially are remarkable. I think we have over a couple hundred now. It's probably a bigger number than that. And people are pitching in many different ways here. Because we have a number of families coming here, one of the things we're looking ahead to is some sort of new facility that serves families. And that could be a brand new building, or it could be renovation of some other structure, but to have more space that is better suited for younger children, so that there's not such a close physical proximity between our single adults and the family groups. So that's something that the board and the staff really look forward to. Our donors, our community have really been generous with us. So we have hopes about a major grant that may come through, but if it doesn't, we're also looking at this would be a good use for some of our reserves. We've been approached by people in the community say, if you go in that direction of getting a family facility going, we will be happy to partner with you on something like that. So I think it's a fitting part of the evolution of us from going from single adults to serving representatives really from the whole community. I really would encourage people from all walks of life in Jackson who maybe want to see the place, certainly to contact Steve or our other staff and come have a tour. There's lots of different ways to volunteer here. Part of what we are trying to do is to change the shelter from being sort of an island unto itself to being part of a neighborhood, to being part of a community. One of the best things if you're experiencing homelessness is to not feel like I'm isolated and I'm off in this separate world, almost like I'm in a refugee camp. No, we are still part of the community. And I think having people come in, whether it's just to serve a meal once a month, or maybe to tutor a child who's working on school issues, it's sort of one of the neat things for me is to see school buses pull up here every morning and our kids are waiting on the steps and they get to continue that helpful, important, normal part of their lives of going to school. So I'd encourage you to come in and volunteer or just get the tour first. We are always looking for people with various backgrounds to be in our pool of potential board members, but there's a lot of different ways to help here. We have churches that come on Wednesday night, help serve the meal, and then put on a service, put on programs. We are trying to help our clients get out of here more, to go to museums, to go to the Dahlem Conservancy and take a walk, to do other things that keep you connected with more normal ways of living, even though you're temporarily in a shelter. It's been a blessing in my life to be able to help out here at the shelter, to be on the board. I am well into my 70s, and I, like many older people who are still around, you want to feel that you still have a purpose. You want to feel useful. So being on the board here has certainly helped put meaning in my life and really put joy in my life as I see the successes of a family finds a place and gets to move out. Someone who hasn't worked in years gets a job through our partnership with the Martin Rhea Automotive Company. One of the things I keep learning is that if you're an outsider, you think, okay, what is the cause of homelessness? Well, there is no one cause. And what we've learned at Jackson Interfaith Shelter and at other shelters in the country is you have to see that person who is in front of you as an individual. You have to get to know them. You have to listen to them, hear their story. As you have time to meet that individual who's in front of you and give them the gift of listening. Sometimes people need money, sometimes they need sobriety, sometimes they need spiritual guidance. But first, they kind of need to be heard and need to be have that feeling that they are cared about. So I think that's part of what we continue to learn here, and what I invite members of the community is, even though you may see somebody on the corner who looks like a bum in the stereotypical word, and they may be intoxicated and maybe they're using profane language, but to kind of listen through that and help identify that person who's underneath, and together we say, okay, if you want to do something different, we are in it with you all the way.